lunches. This session is going to be run by Fred Kirby. It's a customer-focused presentation. So Fred, just to introduce him, is senior consultant at Sopra Steria, and he's going to be showcasing some Whitespace integration that's been implemented at Broxbourne. And he's going to be supported by Helen Shaw from Jadu's integration team. So without further ado, I think I'll just hand over to Fred, if that's all right.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. Hi, everyone. So I think just before we start, we will be recording everything. You can ask any questions and comments in your chat. We're going to have a bit of a Q&A at the end of the session, and you can join the conversation by tweeting on there as well. As Andy said, I'm going to be talking about CXM's integration capabilities out of the box. I've been working on and off with Broxbourne, Borough of Broxbourne for about just over a year now, and on their digital transformation program, and I've been working with Sopra Steria in our consulting for a few years now. So Sopra Steria, for those of you who haven't heard of us, we've got a very strong presence in Europe. We're primarily a French company, but really growing across Europe, and we work in sort of systems integration and infrastructure management, and we're really focused on growing our consulting business, and that's consulting based engagements like Broxbourne is a real focus for us, and something that we're doing a lot more of, and there's a bit more on there that I'll let you read in your own time, but that's us. So Broxbourne Council, Sopra Steria have had a great relationship with Broxbourne Council for a long time. In July 2019, we went live with the full Jadu product suite. It was the fastest ever Jadu implementation at the time, I believe 14 weeks, I'm not too sure. We also opened a brand new reception area, which had that real customer focus on sort of self-serve technology and things like that. So we redesigned that. Brand new ways of working to help improve customer experience and completely change the way a lot of staff work. But that was just the start. That was just the MVP, the minimum viable product. So there were sort of 4 key work streams that we've worked in for this transformation program. Within technology, it's been a real focus on that self-serve technology, integrating lots of different systems, so payments, Office 365. We've rolled out the My Account functionality. We've got the Whitespace integration, which is what I'm here to talk to you about, and lots of other things as well. I think we've actually got 150 customer experience journeys because we went live with a new COVID journey yesterday. So lots happening in that space, and really rapid work going on there. We rolled out, again, staying on COVID, we rolled out Microsoft Teams in 4 days, and the council was able to work from home really quickly and efficiently. And I think that's down to all that change that's been going on over the last 18 months, and completely changed the way customers are contacting and interacting with the council. So brand new messaging systems and different types of queries being handled there. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are in a similar boat, but when I first joined Broxbourne, I had no idea how much time I'd spend talking about bins and waste in general, but especially missed bin. Missed bin is definitely our sort of highest volume journey that of contacts to the council. And when we arrived, it was something that we wanted to take a look at straight away. So this is sort of the old missed bin journey that the council used to have. I won't go into too much detail, but I think the key points are here. Everything was reported via the phone, and you had to wait until 4 p.m. of the day that your missed bin was that your bin was missed to sort of report it. And then there was a lot of manual keying and administration that went around that process. And then on the customer side, it was sometimes harder to find out the outcome of your report, when your bin was collected or whether it was going to be collected. So it was a journey that was causing a fair amount of difficulty and pain for the council and for the residents of the Borough of Broxbourne. So we went live again, that term minimum viable product. We went live with that and in July, and this is the council rolled out a Whitespace waste management system, and this had in-cab technology. It meant that the depot could stay in contact with everything going on out on the streets with all the wagons and what was going on there, and automated a lot of their processes. We created a fairly simple report it form using XFP and CXM for the case management system, so both Jadu tools, and it reduced the need for reporting after 4 p.m. and it reduced the number of contact center calls straight away. And then customers got used to being updated via email if their case was accepted or rejected, and why as well. So it was a vast improvement, as you can imagine. So there were still some issues, and the first one was around qualifying questions. So we found that a lot of people were reporting missed bins, but they weren't what we could call a valid report for a missed bin. They didn't meet our checks. So we tried to put sort of qualifying questions within the form, and they're a bit blurry there, but was your bin on the boundary by 7 a.m., for example? Have you got the correct collection week? And this was sort of this self-reporting, trying to find out if people are doing accurate reports. And we found they weren't very effective. So less than 1% of customers were answering in a way that would disqualify their report, and it wasn't creating a great customer experience. And then the other side is that there was a lot of manual effort from staff. So you had this fantastic waste management system where the crews could go out and communicate with staff back at the depot. But you, on the other side, you had this disconnect. You had this CXM system, which was how the staff were interacting with the customers. So we knew we had to connect these two systems together, and we needed to look at how we could do that. And to do that, we first started out with looking at what those checks were. So how do we decide whether a missed bin report is going to be valid and going to be accepted by the system? So we came up with 6 different checks that we wanted to make before accepting or rejecting a missed bin report. Some of them are very obvious. Valid Broxbourne postcode, you have to be in the borough to report a missed bin to us. You have to be subscribed to that service. Green waste, you have to have a green waste subscription. And again, all of this information, apart from the first one, is all stored within the Whitespace waste management system. So Whitespace knows when a street has been completed, when the crews have gone down that street, and they know whether an exception has been recorded against that property or anything like that. So we went through all of these, and we knew that all of this information that we needed was in Whitespace, and customers were entering things in CXM. So after quite a lengthy process and trial and error and things like that, we chose our middleware software, so the system that we would use to integrate these two. And this is what it looks like. So this is Integramat, and this is our missed bin sequence in a sort of visual diagram of what that looks like. And I will go into a little bit more detail at some sections, but I think if this looks quite daunting, the key things are that it's completely no code, or basically low code, to integrate the two systems, and the whole journey. So going from the very far left, which is that red circle, which was our webhook, our ping out from CXM, all the way to the far right, where you've got the successful ping back into CXM to say, yep, we're going to accept this missed bin. That takes about 2 to 3 seconds. So from a customer experience point of view, it's seamless and very quick, but it's got all the checks that we needed. The reason we went with Integromat, we analysed a few different systems, so you may have heard of Zapier and some other tools. We chose Integromat because and I'll talk about this in a minute, our Whitespace waste management system uses SOAP as an API call, which is a little bit less supported, so it wouldn't work on Zapier and some other tools. And B, because it was a nice and simple, easy to manage system. We're very keen as a transformation program that we don't build black boxes and hand them to a council, hand them back to the client, and the client not be able to tweak them or change them or learn how to maintain them. So we felt that Integromat was something that we could do the knowledge transfer, do the training on, and equip the council to be able to manage and run themselves. So that's it end to end. I'm going to focus now, we're going to go to the left, so that red circle, and this is the webhook. So this is the alerts from CXM on case creation. And for those of you who were on Tom's session earlier today, talking about the changes that they're going to make, at the moment you will receive a webhook alert every time any case is created. So that red dot will be activated. It will be sent a message from CXM every single time a case is created. And this is just some of the information that will come through to your system, to Integromat, when that is activated. And one of the things that I really like about how CXM manages addresses is this is all the information you get about an address. So you get your unique postal reference number, unique street reference number, the summary, you get it all broken down into all those different permutations that you might want. We've also got along the right, we've got the title, so it is a report a misbin. That is our case service, our case type name, so we know it is the right type of case that we're looking at. And then you've also got the personal details, but we don't use any of that for the rest of this process, so we can just forget those and move on. Okay. So the first filter that we do, and this is a zoom in on that original scenario that you saw earlier in Integromat. You've got your incoming webhook here on the left, and anytime you have this filter icon, this funnel, that means we're just filtering out all the activations of that webhook that don't meet the criteria, and that criteria checks that it's a missed bin. So it sounds like coming soon, we won't need that because we'll be able to filter and have a CXM webhook only send out when it's a certain case type. So that's exciting for me. So the first call that we then do into the Whitespace system is a SOAP request, and it's very simple. We send the UPRN, the unique postal reference number, so my address, to Whitespace and the service that I'm reporting. So I'm going to report a recycling for my address, and Whitespace will then ping us back the next date that collection date is. So we can check, doing some maths, whether we fit within that valid date range that Broxbourne have. You have to report a missed bin within 2 days of your missed bin, of your bin collection service. So we pull that back, and then we do a little bit of checking on that data from Whitespace in those boxes there. And then this is the first point where we can push information back into CXM. So these blue circles out here are us updating the CXM case from Integromat using that REST service API that CXM provide us. So the first transition is we would transition it to rejected if there was no service found. So this customer doesn't subscribe to green waste. We don't want to accept their missed bin report. The second would be that they've got an invalid date, so they're reporting and actually your missed bin, your bin's not been collected because your bin is due to be collected tomorrow, for example. So we would reject that. And I'll just show you what that call looks like. So I've obviously blurred out some bits of this, but essentially we are just sending to our CXM instance. We're using the case reference that we've pulled from the webhook, and we're transitioning it from in progress to cancelled. And there in the content, we're able to just put the reason. So I believe this would be a transition saying that the collection crews have said actually your missed bin was rejected because you put cardboard in the wrong bin or something like that, and they would reject it. So when we transition this case, what that also means on the CXM side is that as soon as that transition happens, that value is added into CXM, and that can be imported into the emails. So the customer within a second is receiving an email on the outcome of their check. So they're receiving the update and they're told, right, my missed bin's rejected for this reason. And that's very simple. Finally, then we sort of imagine that we've gone through that. I've reported a missed bin and it's passed every single one of those 6 checks. So we're happy with it. We think it is, at the moment, looks like a valid missed bin report. So the first thing we do is we do a call into Whitespace and we create a missed bin request. We create that worksheet. That's like a job for the crews to then go and collect. Whitespace will then pass me back a reference, and then we call back into CXM, use that service API and update the case. And we put attached to the case the CXM, the Whitespace reference, so that you've got that traceability between the 2 systems, and you transition it from submitted to in progress. I believe the customer will receive an email saying your bin's due to be collected, leave it out, and we're happy with it. And the job goes out straight into Whitespace. So that entire process, there's been no human intervention. No one's had to bother with anything or touch anything, and the crews have received the job. And that is the entire phase 1 of our missed bin process, and it's very seamless and really quick, and it was pretty easy to build, I think. But there's still a second part. So the second part is that the crews have now received the job. It's been assigned to the waste management team, and they've got my address. They know that I've got a green waste bin that wasn't collected, and then they get to the end of the street, of my street, and they mark it as complete. And when they mark it as complete, that will then Whitespace will now ping out a message to a webhook, which we've set up on Integromat again. And then here, what that's doing is it will either transition the case again to say, yeah, Fred, your green waste has been collected. That's complete. It will mark it off as complete in CXM, and it will send me an email saying, don't worry, your bin won't be there when you get back from work. Alternatively, the crews may have arrived to collect my bin, and I've locked it in a bin store, or it's too heavy, or any of the other reasons that we have programmed on the system. And if that's the case, then it will transition the case again and say, actually, your missed bin was rejected because of this reason, and I will get the reason again. And then the final outcome is just if there's no reason that they can come up with, that is programmed in the system, then the staff just have to go and manually do it. So we send out a notification internally to the staff to tell them to do it. So that end to end is the entire missed bin process, and that's what it looks like. So we sort of looked at what it looked like before. I think now you can see that there's an easy to read, really simple form that doesn't ask many complicated questions. You put in your address and you put in your service that you require. you instantly find out about any exceptions against your property or any of those checks that we listed earlier, and you receive that update via email. There's absolutely no admin team that is needed in that process. They are completely gone from the system. So the admin is only needed when the crew need to assign a worksheet out to the crew. So it goes straight into the right system. The customers get that gold standard of communication. They are constantly updated in the process within seconds of everything that happens, and your customer agents are not spending their time dealing with normal queries that could be automated. So it's been a very quick and simple process. So I just have a few sort of reflections after having gone live with it, a few lessons learned. Tom mentioned on his call a tool called Postman. Postman we use to test everything. It's absolutely invaluable. You can test all your API calls that you want to make into the system. It's also now how I do a lot of things in CXM, because when you're testing misbin, for example, and you need to raise another misbin report, you don't want to go through the form. Just have a pre-made call in Postman that will do that for you straight away. We talked about SOAP APIs. They're slightly more clunky than the REST API. So REST API is what you will see mostly. It's certainly what Jadu use. Our Whitespace tool use SOAP API, and it just slightly limits what you can integrate with, but Integromat does it and handles it quite well. So we were happy with that. I'm sure some people will be alerted when they see use live data for testing, but we anonymized it all, obviously. But when you're trying to integrate two systems, don't rely on a workflow or an instruction booklet for how this tool is meant to be used. Use how the tool is actually being used. So the way we did it for misbin is we would take every live misbin report, we would anonymize it using Integromat and raise the exact same thing in our test system, and then our test system could do all the checks, and we could sort of get a real volume of tests going through. So we've got a poll here. So have you been inspired to build some of the integrations with CXM that I've mentioned? So do mention those in the chat or anything like that. Finally, a lesson learned is use CXM for all your emails and notifications. Your staff will be used to CXM being your source of truth. It should be how you communicate with your customers, and it means that history tab is still used. So again, with the misbin, we're transitioning cases and sending the outcome from CXM. We're not using any other email services. And some other uses that we use the service API and the webhooks and things for mass transition of cases. I'm sure we've all been in a situation where suddenly you've got to take 200 cases or something and move them from one to the other. You can do that in seconds using Postman or another tool like that, really simply. Same for importing data into CXM. So we've had a few things where we want to move from using a spreadsheet or another tool to using CXM for the case management, and that's fine for new journeys because they'll all be automatically added to CXM. But how do we get that data into CXM for the cases that they've been managing in the past? We can just put them through using that service API, and it's quick and seamless. Outputting to spreadsheets for reporting and databases. So Integromat integrates quite well with Office 365. We have spreadsheets where a new line is created every time a new CXM case is created for certain case types and things like that, with information for finance or whatever you need. And we definitely want to start exploring some of the database and the reporting and the dashboards, etc. You can even use Amazon Alexa to check the status of your case. So we used a tool called VoiceFlow, which is automated, and it's very visually easy. We did a hack day a couple of days ago, and we just built an Amazon Alexa that could, you could say, what's the status of my missed bin if you wanted to. And also to integrate with Jira. So we use CXM for all of our service and support tickets internally, and I click on a button and it gets added to Jira and onto the backlog for the team to look at. So it speeds things up like that. So yeah, I think that's it. So if you've got any questions or anything coming on the polls, then let me know.
Thanks for that, Fred. It's good to see that showcase. It's very interesting in terms of that use of Integromat. That's the first time I've really seen it, and it's interesting to learn about its capabilities with SOAP over things like Zapier, which I hadn't understood before. So that's really good to see. We have had a few questions come in, so we'll start off with those if that's okay. And then maybe we'll come on to the poll results. So in terms of some of the questions, Andy Johnson has asked, what level of technical ability is required to configure Integromat?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm not highly technical. I'm relatively technical, but all self-taught and things like that. Integromat at its most basic. I was talking to Andy before we started. It's a very visual sort of way of organizing it and setting it up. It's a bit like with CXM. It's very logical. If this then that sort of process. It's mostly user interface. They have a very good support system. So their service desk are very good, and they have forums and things which will help you. I would say the most complicated thing that I have in there is the sort of equivalent to macros in Excel. So that sort of level, if you take it to the very furthest. But some of the stuff that we do, just creating a new line in a spreadsheet or anything like that, anyone should be able to do.
Excellent. And I think probably the session after this with James Kirkhan's a bit later. There's a few other solutions that will probably be showcased in that. So again, everyone who's interested in solutions like Integromat, probably worth joining that session. Another question from Andy. In Jadu integrations, there is a Whitespace Power Suite element. Does this not remove the need to use middleware? And are there plans to develop this to achieve everything done with Integromat? So I think that's probably aimed more at us, Fred, that one. And Helen, do you want to answer that one at all?
Yeah, I can take that. So I think we pretty much developed them at a similar sort of time. I was aware that Fred was looking at having some integration between CXM and Whitespace, and I think you had quite tight deadlines to get that done. And obviously there were quite a lot of complicated checks in there that we'd have to factor into the integration. So I think that was probably one of the key drivers for you guys going and doing it yourselves. That be
Yeah, absolutely, and it was maintainable by the council, so the council could tweak it and say, actually, now we want 3 days, and they wouldn't have to worry with interrupting you guys, I think.
Sure, yeah. And in terms of the Jadu integration, so that is it's very similar to the functionality that Fred's developed in terms of you've got two-way communication there, so you can raise a worksheet in Whitespace, and then when we get updates back from Whitespace, they will go into CXM. So the only thing that I guess isn't covered in that is some of the more complicated checks. There are some in the forms product in XFP, but perhaps won't cover all the checks that any one council may need, because everybody's workflow is different in terms of misbins and the rules that you have. Yeah.
Okay, thanks both for inputting on that one. Question from Peter Large. Have you found that customers complain in other ways? corporate complaints, contact us forms, etc.?
Yes, I suppose. But I think that one of the powerful things that we've done is we've freed up our customer contact center to be able to deal with complaints rather than dealing with that day-to-day churn of accurate and inaccurate reports. And the system is pretty good. So I mean, you know, if you reject someone's missed bin report, I suppose you're always going to get people being unhappy about it. The council have their complaints process within that, but I think what we've actually done is freed up the people who would normally just be doing manual data entry to deal with those much rarer complaint processes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Imran has asked a question: can we get some more info on Postman for testing? Did you do anything in particular with Postman on your side, Fred, when you were building out this integration, or?
No, not particularly. So you can do sort of when I talk about testing with Postman, it's a much more visual and easier to make sure that sort of any API call that you're going to do, test it in Postman, and then you're sort of copying and pasting that into the integration tool that you're using. So it's much more about just having. You can also save things, so you can, you know, I've got files saved for report a missed bin, for example. I can just double click and send out 100. So it's much more like that than we don't do any mass testing or anything like that.
Okay, all right. I mean, short of that, Imran, there's a whole heap of info on the web about Postman, what it is, how it works. If you drop us a note afterwards, if there's something in particular you're thinking about, then I'm sure we can help answer some questions around that. I guess a question from me, Fred. I mean, in terms of the throughput that you've seen, have you seen like an increase in submissions or a reduction in incorrect cases being raised because of the changes that you've implemented here? Have you kind of got any metrics around that at the moment, or?
Yeah, I don't have any metrics to hand. I think that the main sort of increase has been that the council aren't having to deal with those sort of incorrect missed bins, and if you spoke to anyone, whether it was the customer contact point or the waste team, they were spending a large part of their day dealing with people that, you know, hadn't left their bin out at the right time, or you know, who'd not followed their rules and were reporting missed bins. So I think definitely eliminated those, and it's sort of but we haven't looked at the figures too closely, but it would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, okay. And have you had to revisit the process that you've defined in Integromat so far? Have you had to go back and adjust it or adapt it at any point since you've gone live? Or?
Yeah, so we were really keen because, as I said, it's such a huge journey, and I'm sure anyone else who's working with or for a council, and we were saying before, you know, missed bin is one of the most important things to get right. So we were really keen to take that slow approach and that iterative approach. So with regards to those 6 checks, we didn't roll out all 6 checks at once. I sort of talked about how we had the first process, the first part of the process, and then the second part of the process, which was the Whitespace feeding back into CXM after the bin had been collected or not. We spaced those out quite a lot. And then other than that, there were some minor tweaks that were sort of just making it slightly more efficient and things like that, but nothing too drastic.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions you want to ask, Helen, or all good?
No, I don't think anything from me.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we've come to the end of the questions. So I just thought we'd have a quick look at those poll results. And it looks like 55% of people have said yes. So it looks like you've inspired a few people there, Fred. That's good to see. Just 7%, 2 people said no, and 38% were not sure. So that's positive to see as a result of that presentation. So that's good. Okay, so I mean, if I could just take the opportunity just to remind you about the the support for the charity, the Ovarian Cancer Action. We've gotten to 81% now of our target, so we're getting there. Just need that little bit final push over the last presentation of the day. I did see some questions in a previous session about the color of the paint on my walls. Interestingly, I think someone's quite keen on it, and I'll be happy to divulge that information if we can get to 100%. So that would be really good if we could make that happen. So next up today, and last session of the day, is from James Cokerhans from Jadu, and he's going to be doing a CXM Innovation Hub session. So he's going to be looking very much at things like Zapier and how they can be used with the platform to do other cool things. And alongside him will be Mike Holmes, who's a technical consultant from Methods. And that session starts at 3 p.m. today. So enough time to check your email, get a fresh cup of coffee, and then join us for that last session. And hopefully we'll see that percentage up at 100, and I can give you my paint color. Excellent. Thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks a lot, Fred. That was a great presentation, and I enjoyed that.
Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.